Okay, to start, I apologize for how gloomy this video is, but it's a very gloomy day out. Very, very gloomy day. It is 2 days after Christmas, and it's snowing. Not snowing. Raining. Snowing would make sense. No, it's raining outside. But, hello. All of that aside, welcome to 2019 in review. Yes, it is officially the last Friday of 2019, which means that this should be the last video for 2019, but it's not. This is actually going to be the second last video because I'm going to take a look at the year in review in this video, and then I'm going to take a brief stroll back through the decade in a video that will be uploaded on the last day of 2019, the last day of the decade. That's exciting. But today is focusing on the past year. In a lot of ways, this year has been absolutely fantastic, and there have also been a lot of struggles this year. So to start, what I'm going to do, off camera of course, because that would be boring for you lot, is I'm going to watch my... I've somehow lost it in the short amount of time that I was... There it is. Going to watch my first video of 2019, my 19 goals for 2019, and then we'll take a look at how all of that panned out. Spoiler alert! Things fell apart a little bit, but for different reasons. So I'm gonna go ahead and watch this, and then we'll get right back to this video. Okay, I've realized how long this video is, so I've decided to watch a bit and then respond as necessary. So I really like this video because the first thing I do is go and get an extremely subtle undercut and my hair a lot shorter. As you can see, that lasted less than half the year before I finally just got continuously frustrated with my hair and shaved it all off. I am much more comfortable with this hairstyle. It's much shorter. There's still some contention about it within the family, but I am 26 at this point, so. And then this year I actually went ahead and got my own razor, shaver thing to help keep it down. I am absolutely terrible though at shaving my own head, even when it's still relatively short. Inevitably, I have to run over to my mother in my parents' apartment and have her fix it. She has endeavored to not laugh hysterically at me every time I show up with an unevenly shaved head. She's been a champion, and it helps because she and Dad picked up a razor for their apartment, so I don't even have to bring my own along. If it's real messed up and she needs the razor, she just uses that one. And the other thing I've mentioned, of course, da-da-da-da-da, my bullet journal. Whoops. Let's take a look. So this is actually in where it was when I stopped using this practically entirely, and it's May. Oh boy. Yeah, so I put this entire bullet journal together to try and keep track of my life, and it turns out I don't find bullet journaling relaxing. I find it actually more stressful for me, so this was not the way for me to go. And rather than be upset about that, it's just kind of a lesson learned thing. I did use some of the sections at the front, for example, my reading log, which we will get to, and like my Friday Fun Day tracker, and of course my book and page tracker. So there were some things at the front that I certainly used, but mostly this fell through. So I know better now. It won't be something I am attempting in 2020. If I do anything, I will just keep to a pre-built agenda. I found I used that one a lot more. I don't think I used it to its fullest degree, but that's something, again, I can learn further. Rather than having to try and put everything together, we'll just start slow and work our way up. Okay, let's see what's up next on this. Okay. The next section really was my 19 goals. So I just finished out the video and I'm back again. Though going into that section, I said one of my goals this year was to try and let go of things that are beyond my control. And I've realized over this year that the key thing to that is recognizing what is in your control and handling that shit. And I'll admit fully that it probably took me a good deal longer this year than that probably should have. But, like, the thing with being human, and this has been said before, I can't tell you who said it, but we are both the artist and the marble block. Like, you are chipping away at yourself to find the good parts, and that's gonna hurt, it's gonna take a while, and you're gonna make some mistakes. So, one thing I can't control is making mistakes. That's human. I can try and avoid it, but getting down on myself for making mistakes, or taking a while, or figuring shit out, I'm working on being done with that. It's a work in progress. I'm a work in progress. I am always learning. What I find really funny about that section, though, was me precisely saying it because I have been, at that point, like, so at the start of this year, I have been applying for PhD programs. And that can be scary because people can say no. The university I'm at said yes. So part of this year, my 19 goals for 2019 went off the rail because somebody said yes, and I had to go with the flow, get into the program, and handle it. So from September to midway through December, school was my focus. Sometimes people say no, sometimes they say yes, and dealing with each of those is really important. So I've also made some steps for helping control all of this. This year I did actually go ahead and get on some anti-anxiety meds. It just happened towards the end of this year, but it has been a very good change for me. So I am very happy that I made that decision finally, and continuing the program hopefully isn't going to be nearly as mentally exhausting now that I am, you know, handling this rather than simply trying to beat myself up into doing what I want my head to do. So, let's go ahead and take a look at what my 19 goals for 2019 were, and we'll see how we did. If I could find it in here. Boop, boop. Okay. Number 1, graduate. And I did that. My official graduation from my master's program came through end of January. I actually celebrated my graduation in the spring, though, in June. Rather than going to my spring convocation, we sort of had a party here. I got all dressed up, I got a pretty flower crown, we took some photos with me and my parents and my diploma, and then my best friend showed up. Yes, Rach actually came to visit with her husband. She and my parents set this up without telling me. I was not expecting it at all. So not only was I able to celebrate my graduation with Rach and her husband, but my 26th birthday as well. And in fact, boop! Yes, I've got 3 pictures I'm showing off in this video. They are 3 of my favorite from this year, though I did take a whole lot, and they're all in the span of a couple of days. So my graduation photo and the fact that Rach and her husband took me not only to Toronto to the CN Tower and Ripley's Aquarium, but I actually spent my 26th birthday at Niagara Falls. Yeah. So what's sort of fun with that one is goal number 1, graduate, and goal number 17, visit Rach, happened kind of together, though the technical graduation happened a whole lot earlier in the year. Number 2, get my G2, which actually happened at the end of February this year. I practiced very hard, got used to driving, and now I drive quite a bit. This has been really good so that I can go and get groceries, have more control of what I'm doing, and ultimately it has facilitated a lot more socialization that I'm going to get to a little later in this. Because the key thing with this year is I didn't stick to my 19 goals. When opportunities arose, I took them. So let's see. 3, edit and publish Eagles. Didn't happen. What actually happened with that is I was taking a look at Eagles and where I wanted the final book, Crows, to go. And number 4, finish writing Crows, is on here as well. The thing is, I took a look at both of these texts, particularly Eagles, and then I also ended up looking at Wolves, which is already self-published, and I realized that the series wasn't really what I wanted it to be. So this has been put on hold so far. This might change in the coming year, as I'll talk about in my very first video for 2020, where I will be setting out my basic plan for 2020. But my writing this year, again, took a pause, simply because of everything else in my life, and the fact is that I wasn't happy with it. It wasn't making me enjoy it, it was making me actually hate it worse. So the series has been on pause, and I haven't gone any further with it. I'm planning to actually revamp it eventually. Book and Page Season 2 was my 5th goal, and I did complete this one. It took me about half the year. I actually finished up Book and Page Season 2 in June this year, towards the end of June. June seems to have been my high watermark, if I'm honest, but we'll get to that point. This was a very fun one to do, and I was looking at a possible Season 3, but with the start of my PhD program, a lot of things, like I said, went on hold from these goals, so I haven't progressed with Season 3 at all. I'm very tempted to go back to something like HP with a BA, where I focus on a particular series in depth, rather than trying to do a bunch of different books. So you might see something coming like that in the coming year or two. Like I said, when I get to that 2020 video, you'll realize why I'm not being firm about a lot of these things. Goal number 6, read 50 books. Well, let's take a look. So my book tracker has actually been, my reading log, has actually been one of the pages I kept up in this. And if you look here, boop, I am at 49. I finished The Da Vinci Code by Dan Brown between Christmas Day and Boxing Day. So I have got one more book to read by the end of 2019, and I've actually already started it. I am about 70 pages in. It's about a 240-page book. So I am quite confident that I am going to, in fact, read 50 books in 2019. Now, I'll fully admit that I do have texts on here that were my classroom texts, but these are full books that I read cover to cover. So, there are quite a few that ultimately I only wrote down all of them at the end, so they don't have the dates properly, but some fantastic ones. Online Gaming and Playful Organization was an interesting one. Communities of Play is actually one that I've now ordered from Amazon. I got it from my university's library, and I have actually picked it up on Amazon. I'm waiting for it to be delivered. I think it's going to be really useful for my project moving forward. There were certainly some flops. I was going to say, I believe this is the year that I read just Yes, Companies of Liars, Company of Liars. Read that during one of my readathons this year and have never wanted to chuck a book out of a window that much. But for the most part, I quite enjoyed a lot of the reading that I've done this year. The start of the year started out strong, and then again fell away quite a bit. There were some months where not a lot of reading occurred. There were also some months where I had a readathon and just read everything. I'm trying to see, it's hard to pick what my favorite one for the year was. It's really funny because my mother doesn't understand I really like reading nonfiction. So she always jokes with me like, oh, just a little bit of light reading, huh? Because the first book I read after finishing my semester was A Brief History of Kings and Queens by Mike Ashley. So, that is true. I would have to think for, like, nonfiction outside of school, Loot by Sharon Waxman. Fantastic text about how museums have operated and how they've actually made their collections, and the issues between the countries of origin and the countries those museums are in. For my own personal work, like I said, Communities of Play, for one of the classes I took, Mohawk Interruptus was absolutely fantastic. It really highlighted some of the issues of Aboriginal sovereignty, well being a nested sovereignty, basically a sovereign nation within another sovereign nation that took over the property. And it really spoke to me because it's actually about a community that was affected by things that affected where I grew up. But I'm a white person from a white community, so I wasn't affected nearly as much as this Mohawk community was. So a fantastic text. I highly recommend it. Audria Simpson is the author there, if you're wondering. And yeah, so like reading this year has been absolutely fantastic. I have successfully made 50 books if I keep on top of the one I'm currently reading. 7, write 6 short stories. Oh boy. Okay, time to get into some of the disappointment, because number 8 is also NaNoWriMo 2019. Like I said, my writing hasn't really worked this year. I am making plans to improve that coming up. So come back for my 2020 video if you're curious about that. 2019, not the year of writing for me. I'm working on it. I mean, in my defense for NaNoWriMo, I was in the middle of a semester for a PhD program, so. Skipping down to number 10, Draft When Magic Sleeps, another novel. But let's go back up to goal number 9, Viva 2019. I did successfully do this. Some of the first videos were a little awkward because I was actually suffering from allergic reaction that caused me to be polka dotted, so I didn't really want to hop on camera, but I solved it with the help of some good stuffy friends coming to my aid. Number 11, keep up the bullet journal. We've already discussed that. Whoops. Number 12, submit at least 1 academic essay, and then number 13, submit at least 5 pieces of writing. Whoops. I did submit a piece of writing, and it did successfully get accepted. In fact, Rach and I ended up being published in the same anthology, and Rach got an honorable mention. It was fantastic. So I've got the book, I've been doing some reading. I was so happy to find out we were in the same text, and when that honorable mention came through, I was just like, yes! Yes! Keep up with the blog is number 14. My blog did ultimately sort of stall out. We could take a look at when that happened, because, again, I've got a list of them here. Oh, would you look? Going into July, that stalled out. Like I said, June was sort of my high watermark for following this set of goals. Everything from there changed very rapidly. Number 15, keep up with the Friday Fun Day videos. Hello, we've mostly done that. There have definitely been some Fridays I have missed, but hey, we're finishing up. We are finishing up strong with a couple extra videos as well. Goal number 16, decrease clutter. I have been working on this. In fact, 3 videos throughout this year have been me trying to decrease clutter, get rid of some things I don't need, and organize what I do have. So that was pretty nice. 17, again, visit Rach. I didn't go to her, she came to me, and that was a fantastic change, and we did so many cool things. 18, go out with friends at least once a month. This I've actually kept up on. I've been so happy with this, and there's been a key change that has made this so much easier. Because the big focus here was on socialization. And then 19, put together a cookbook. Hasn't happened. But let's talk about some things that aren't on that list that have happened for me. Because there have been some things that just, again, aren't necessarily within your control, and you just have to deal with it. So along with graduating in January and getting my G2 in February, March, I actually lost something. 2 wisdom teeth. Gone out of my face hole. This was a very stressful time for me. I'm not good with bodily things. And last time I had to be put under general anesthesia, I freaked out. I did better this time, but in trying not to panic, I was consciously keeping myself awake, so it actually took quite a lot for them to knock me out. But I did have 2 of my wisdom teeth removed, and that went fairly well, except for the fact that the antibiotic they gave me was based in penicillin, and I found out last year I'm allergic to penicillin. So I had an allergic reaction towards the end of March, very start of April. Now, penicillin allergic reactions actually get worse the more they happen. So the first time it happened, I was only polka dotted. This time I was polka dotted, and I started to swell up in the face and neck. This was a concern if there would be an issue with breathing, so I actually spent a day this year in Emerge, hanging out, making sure I can breathe properly until the swelling went down. It was very fun because it was an extremely busy day in Emerge, and so I spent most of my day on like a bed in the entranceway to Emerge, just being monitored. And I constantly heard people being like, does she have, like, is that, am I gonna get that? Because I'm spotted. So there were people who were very concerned that I had something contagious. And in fact, that was the first thing the doctors had to eliminate. So I spent the rest of the day having people being like, is that like polio? Like, should my kid not be around her? And having nurses and doctors being like, it's just an allergic reaction, like it's okay, she's not contagious, everything's fine. So in the coming year, I am definitely going to get a emergency alert bracelet, because the major concern is if I do end up being dosed with a penicillin-based antibiotic again, that there will be breathing troubles. Which we don't want, right? This came at sort of an awkward time because at the start of April, just after I'd healed enough for my wisdom teeth, and thankfully after we figured out that the swelling went down rapidly, I was just going to be polka dotted for a bit and then everything would be fine. My parents actually headed for an extended trip in Panama. Not Panama City, Florida, Panama. So I drove them up. This was the big reason I needed my G2 this year. They drove themselves to the airport and I drove the car back home, and they headed off for a couple of months. My brother in the same month, this is April at this point, also headed off to BC to where he is working now. So I ended up in my apartment by myself. May really did ramp up in my tourism job at the time. I started doing walking tours again along with my retail and ticket sales position. And then, like I said, June is my high water mark. I should go back though. April, I also got word that I would be, I had been accepted in my PhD program. So Everybody left, and then I got really good news, and I was like, I don't have anybody to tell. So Rach was the first one to find out. Now, May, my tourism job took off, and then April, my parents came back home to visit for my birthday and graduation party. Like I said, they and Rach and her husband came up with a sneaky, sneaky plan. I didn't actually find out what it was until we went to a restaurant where we were having dinner. It was my parents, my uncle, and I. And there was 6 chairs at the table, and my mother put me at the end of one, and the 3 of them took the other side. And I was looking at these 2 chairs, and I thought to myself, don't say it. Because I was thinking that if they had invited like a couple of my work friends, then I would be in the middle. But Rach and her husband, of course, are a couple, so they sit together. But I didn't want to say it because I didn't want to be disappointed. And then they came through the door, and I cried. I cried. So we had a whirlwind week where we spent time not only here in my town, like I said, headed to Toronto and took a bus up to Niagara Falls to visit the falls and the amazing, just carnival-esque strip down there. 2019, the year Angie became 26 at a big falls where she latched onto the side of the boat and screamed most of the time in an attempt not to panic. It was fantastic. They did have to head off again, as did my parents. They drove themselves and me to the airport on July 1st on Canada Day, and I drove myself home. July and August, for the most part, were just me hanging out and working a whole bunch. Basically trying to save up as much money as I could heading into my program. My parents returned from their extended trip about mid-August, end of August, just in time for me to start my program in September. We realized pretty quickly that with me in my program and my parents back home but semi-retired, that we needed a little more space. So about mid-October, I actually moved into the building next to theirs, into my own 1-bedroom apartment. This has been a really good move for us because we're still immediately close together. We can visit each other all the time. I go over there for supper all the time. We share the one vehicle because my parents sold off the other one before they headed on their trip. And we've been figuring it out since. I've met some fantastic people as part of this program, and we really have had a chance to hang out and really have fun. In fact, in October, shortly before Halloween, we went ghost hunting at one of the local museums. It was very fun. Everything from pendulums to recording devices, to cameras. It was just a fun adventure for like an hour late on a Sunday. It was great. Finishing up my first semester was a little difficult. I love being back in the classroom, but there are definitely points where I'm like, why have I done this to myself for a 3rd time? But this is where I want to be, so this is an excellent opportunity for me, and I've really enjoyed the semester. Wrote some interesting papers. I am still waiting for marks. Who even knows when those are going to come in? And then, of course, we hit Christmas. It's been a fantastic holiday, though a quieter one, with most of my family scattered around. Most of my cousins have been heading to their partners' homes for the holiday. My brother, of course, is working in an industry where Christmas is the big time of the season, so he is expected to come and visit towards the end of January for his birthday. So it really was just my parents and I. Have I been lonely? No. Between people I've met at work, people I've met at school, and thanks to Rach and her husband, people I've met at D&B. Yes, one of the major changes this year that's really helped with my socialization is about end of June, start of July, I started attending a regular Monday night D&D group. And that means this has been happening for about half a year so far. We have been playing a campaign. I am the cleric healer, a halfling by the name of Lydia, who has some abandonment issues and attachment issues. She is the child of the group apparently because she also cries a lot, and she's so short that most people just carry her around. But I'm getting good at healing, so I also convinced one of our beefiest warrior ladies to subclass as a cleric, because I basically lectured her to say that not everybody understands war and what it is, and not everybody's fit for it, and the celebration of it is not always a good thing. And she was like, then I work to make sure other people don't have to experience it. It was a great character building a moment. So I have actually been socializing, not only getting out at least once a month, but in fact every Monday I head out to go on grand adventures with a fantastic group of people. In fact, coming up, we've continued through the holidays. Everybody here has been in the area, so the 23rd was a Monday. We had D&D. The 30th is a Monday. We'll have D&D. And I've actually been invited to a D&D pajama party for New Year's Eve. I am so excited. So that's where I'll be spending my time on the very last evening of the decade. 2019 has been really interesting. There have definitely been some bumps along the road. My mental health has been problematic, but I've also been working really hard on making it better. With my program continuing into the new year, and even beyond that, well, my career finally feels like it might be a plausible career. It's been one heck of a year, but I'm excited to see where everything's gonna go. So, on behalf of Lydia, Silver, all my other characters, and of course myself, thank you 2019. It's been an interesting one. 2020 is going to be even more so. Like I said, one more video for 2019 though. On the very last day, I'm going to be reflecting on the decade as a whole. Turns out, if 2019 was a roller coaster of a ride, the 2010s, even bigger roller coaster. I doubt it will be as long as this video, but hey, what can you do? Sometimes life's like that. So going into the new year, I hope you have fun. And I hope looking back at this one isn't too hard for people. Things will get better if they haven't been good, and they'll get better if they have been. Talk to you later.